There's a very quiet kind of tension that doesn't announce itself right away. It doesn't walk into the room with a clear argument or a sharp disagreement. It sort of settles in slowly, like a shift in the air that you only notice after a few moments. And that's the feeling I keep coming back to when I think about All in the Family and the way it handles gender roles, especially in those moments where nobody says the words directly, where nobody stands up and declares that something needs to change. But the change is there anyway, sitting just beneath the surface, shaping everything that follows. And I find myself drawn to one kind of situation that captures this so clearly, where the entire episode unfolds around something that seems almost ordinary, something like Gloria making a decision about her own life, something small on paper, maybe about taking a job, or choosing how to spend her time, or even just expressing an opinion about how she wants to live. And at first, it doesn't feel like a confrontation. It feels like a normal conversation. But in that living room with those particular people, nothing stays simple for long. Archie hears it, and the way he reacts isn't explosive right away. It's more subtle than that, more layered, because what's being challenged isn't just the decision itself. It's the idea behind it, the shift away from a structure he understands. A structure where roles are clear, defined, almost automatic. For him, those roles aren't oppressive, they're stabilizing. They're part of what makes the world make sense. And when Gloria steps outside of that, even slightly, it doesn't feel like independence. It feels like disruption. He starts to question it, not always directly, sometimes through humor, sometimes through a kind of dismissive tone that tries to reduce the situation to something smaller than it is. And that's where the tension begins to build. Mike responds, of course, but what's interesting is that his response doesn't always come in the form of a direct argument. Sometimes it's just support, just standing beside Gloria, reinforcing the idea that her choices matter, that she has the right to define her own role. And that quiet support becomes its own kind of challenge to Archie's worldview, because it shifts the balance of the room. It changes who holds authority, who gets to decide what's normal. Gloria feels the weight of all of it, and her reactions carry that complexity because she's not just making a decision, she's navigating the emotional landscape of her family, the expectations she grew up with, the future she wants to create, and that tension shows in the way she speaks, the way she hesitates, the way she pushes forward anyway. And then there's who moves through the moment with that gentle awareness that defines her, not confronting the issue head-on, not reframing it in abstract terms, but responding to the people in the room, to how they feel, to how the conversation is affecting them. Her kindness doesn't resolve the conflict, but it changes its texture, it softens the edges. It creates space for something more than just opposition. What makes this kind of scene so compelling is that the questioning of gender roles happens indirectly, not through a clear statement, but through the accumulation of small moments, small decisions, small reactions that gradually reveal something larger. The living room becomes the perfect setting for this, because it's so contained, so familiar, so tied to the idea of home, of tradition, of routine. And when those routines are challenged, even in subtle ways, it feels significant. There's no escape from the conversation, no way to step outside of it. It just continues, unfolding in real time, shaped by the personalities involved. And the humor that emerges from this isn't about punchlines or setups. It's about the friction, the way Archie tries to hold onto his understanding of how things should be, the way Mike supports change, the way Gloria navigates both, and the way gently shifts the emotional tone. You might laugh at Archie's attempts to minimize the change, at how he frames his arguments, at how he tries to bring the conversation back to something familiar. And at the same time, you might feel that underlying discomfort, because what's happening isn't just funny, it's real. It reflects a broader shift that was happening in 1970s America, where traditional gender roles were being questioned, not always loudly, not always in public debates, but in homes, in conversations, in the way people began to see themselves differently. And that's what made the show so groundbreaking, because it didn't present those changes as abstract ideas. It showed how they played out in everyday life, how they affected relationships, how they created tension even when nobody was trying to start a fight. As the scene unfolds, you start to notice how the conversation doesn't move toward a clear resolution. It moves in waves, building and easing, circling back, shifting in tone. And that's because the issue itself isn't something that can be solved in a single moment. Archie doesn't suddenly change his perspective. He doesn't fully accept the new dynamic. But there are moments, small ones, where something shifts, where he pauses, where he seems to consider, even if only briefly, that things might not be as fixed as he believes. Mike continues to support Gloria, sometimes calmly, sometimes with more intensity, and Gloria herself moves through the conversation with a mix of determination and vulnerability, trying to hold onto her sense of self without completely breaking the connection to her family. Remains that steady presence, offering warmth, offering understanding, reminding everyone that even in disagreement, there's still something holding them together. And that's what makes the tension so effective, because it's not just about the issue, it's about the relationships, about how change affects the way people connect to each other. The humor, again, sits right alongside that tension, not replacing it, not distracting from it, but highlighting it, making it more accessible, more engaging, even as it remains uncomfortable. And that discomfort is important because it reflects the reality of those changes, the way they weren't always easy, the way they created uncertainty, resistance, confusion. Watching it now, you can still feel how relevant it is, because the way gender roles are questioned hasn't really disappeared. It's just evolved, taken on new forms, new language, but the core experience, the negotiation between expectation and identity, is still there. As the conversation winds down, there's no clear victory, no moment where everything is settled, just a gradual return to something quieter, something more familiar. But the shift has happened, even if it's subtle, even if it's incomplete, and that shift becomes part of the ongoing dynamic, something that will continue to shape future conversations. And maybe that's the most honest thing the show does. It doesn't try to resolve the tension. It doesn't pretend that one conversation can change everything. It simply shows the process, the slow, uneven way that change happens. So when the living room settles back into its usual rhythm, when the characters return to their routines, there's still something lingering, something unresolved, something that feels like it could surface again at any moment. And that's the kind of storytelling that stays with you, not because it gives you clear answers, but because it reflects something real, something ongoing, something that continues to evolve.